Westminster. Very good afternoon to you, James. Interesting rhetoric from Jeremy Corbyn. A lot of populist jargon, populist slogans, a rigged system, fairer society, wanting power in the hands of the many, if not a few. You got the sense that he was trying to rebrand himself as this populist left-wing leader. Has that done enough to silence Mr. Corbyn's critics?
Well, I don't think there's actually much he can do to silence his critics, whatever he does. But the issue with his brand of populism is that it is only half of what people believe. So there is, in fact, big support, a big concern about the super rich and about the elite, massive declines of trust in society. We did a poll recently. We found people were more concerned about big business, for example, than Europe, and yet Europe's what we had the referendum about. So there is a kind of energy that he is tapping into. The problem for him is that he isn't getting into the other half of populism, which is about the view that it's not just the rich elite that are taking the mickey in society, that there are people who could be contributing that don't, that we need to be strong on the realm of defence, that we need to preserve nuclear weapons. There's a whole other half of populism that he doesn't believe in, and I can't see him embracing. And so the question is whether this kind of left-wing rhetoric, which sounds very similar to what he might have said 20 years ago, will cut the mustard in this situation now, where actually the energy is not really with these ideas, but it's with the other kind of populism that's out there.
So is there anything that Mr. Corbyn and his supporters can learn from this fervour for anti-establishment politics? If you look at the case of the United States with Donald Trump, a man who wasn't part of the political system, he effectively came in from nowhere. And you've also seen the results of Brexit. People wanting a change no matter what that change is. Is there anything that the Labour Party can learn from that?
Yeah, I mean, look, as the opposition party, you ought to be able to ride that kind of wave. And Trump did it by sitting outside of the Republican establishment and clearly being different. And he talked about draining the swamp and running very hard against politics as usual. And there's lots of energy behind that. So Jeremy Corbyn potentially could tap into that. The problem is that it's not enough. Trump also ran, for example, on reducing immigration into the US and controlling immigration. He ran on changing trade rules. Corbyn doesn't have those elements, and there are some elements that you need if you want to get to a populist anti-establishment voter in Stoke, where we're about to have a by-election. It's not going to be enough to say that big business is screwing over the little guy. You're also going to have a position on immigration, and a populist position on immigration is the exact opposite of Jeremy Corbyn's position on immigration. And so it's how can he navigate the gaps in his outlook and his rhetoric? That's the problem. The starting point is fine, but I just don't see how it's going to be enough.
And in terms of policy and plan, lots of rhetoric in that speech, but did we learn any hard facts, any idea of exactly how he's going to implement the policies that he's talking about, changing the structure of the NHS system, putting the care home system into the hands of the public purse, so it's not in the hands of private homeowners? Did we get anything in terms of details, in terms of policy from this speech that he made at the Fabian Society?
We didn't, and it doesn't matter. Hillary Clinton had a far more comprehensive policy programme than Donald Trump. At the last election, the Labour Party had 1,000 policies in great levels of detail. It just doesn't really matter, particularly at this point in the electoral cycle. What you need to do is establish who you are, what you believe in, and build trust that you genuinely, authentically plan to take the country in that direction. And policy is one way of building that kind of connection, but rhetoric and the battles you fight and all those kinds of things do it too. So, no, there wasn't a lot of substantive policy there. There were some policy ideas. I don't actually think that is a political problem because what he's trying to do is redefine himself. At the moment, he's seen really as a wet lettuce, a guy with no particular direction, no passion, no fire. He's got to try and establish himself as a leader. And you can do that without having a policy paper with 97 points.
James, has the public already made their minds on Jeremy Corbyn? So regardless of what he says, regardless of how many times he attempts to rebrand himself, they've already decided, they've already made their opinions on him. And in many ways, they've already decided how they're going to vote at the ballot box come the next general election.
Well, I do think the first part of that is true. So they may not know who they're going to vote for, and there's going to be, the Liberal Democrats are making a pitch to Remain voters. UKIP, there's a clear rationale for voting for UKIP, which is to put pressure for hard Brexit, and the Conservative Party are the party that's sort of in the middle of those. So I'm not sure people have decided who they're going to vote for, but with respect to Corbyn, you have this very, very narrow window to introduce yourself and define yourself. And it's a real mystery why Corbyn didn't start here, because this at least gives him a fighting chance as a set of positions. But he's now got to wade through all the muck of the last year and a bit of his leadership, the sense that he can't lead, that his own party don't support him, the positions he set out previously, the stuff around the national anthem and all those kinds of things. He didn't sing the national anthem. It is very hard to change people's perceptions. I can't think of examples of leaders who have been in the pit that he is with respect to public opinion, who've been able to turn it around while staying leader of the party. And if he manages to do it, that will be unprecedented.
James Morris, former key member for the former leader of the Labour Party, Ed Miliband's team. Many thanks indeed for sharing your quite gloomy thoughts on Jeremy Corbyn and the outlook for his tenure as the leader of the party. Thank you.